Friends, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me, and we're starting. Alexandra Ilyanikna. Her name was Ailey at home. Her character was gold. Beautiful, rosy-cheeked, lush, but light in her own way. She did not ask too much from life, but she also did not miss what came into her hands. She had good relations with everyone, which, it seems, never happens in life. With her husband Yevgeny Ramelyevich, an early balding, loose, puffy pediatric surgeon, and with her son Danya, a 10th grader, and with the most diverse, even very malicious aunts, colleagues, and lovers which were not translated from her, changing from time to time and sometimes running into one another. Only with Inga, the only daughter, the relationship was not that bad, but still difficult. Her girl took after her father, was also loose, with a plump, swarthy face, black slanted Tatar eyes, a bulky square bottom and large, but flabby, not like her mother, breasts. Alexandra Ilyanikna was deeply offended by her daughter's worthless appearance, her apathetic appearance, sluggish, pale hair, despite its natural blackness. From time to time, she attacked Inga, demanded that she take energetic care of her appearance, forced her to dress up. Fortunately, there was something. But she just got annoyed and squinted contemptuously. She disliked her mother and was secretly annoyed that her brother, not her, had inherited her mother's bright blue eyes, the precision of her eyebrows and nose, and the strong whiteness of her teeth. In addition, some rumors about motley maternal adventures had crept up to her. Inga, by her 20s, despite her not too attractive appearance and complex character, had already had experience with men and understood a lot. She also sometimes felt angry irritation towards her father, resented the unscrupulous tolerance of his behavior. How and why does he put up with Ali's phone giggling, absences, lies, and indifferently shameless coquetry with all males, not excluding the district policeman and the neighbor's cat? The very age of her mother seemed to Inga to have long since crossed the line when flirtations, romances, and all this love nonsense are possible. And Ali had a subtle theory of marriage, according to which it turned out that adultery only strengthens marriage, gives rise to a sense of guilt in the spouses, gently cementing any crack and chink in the relationship. Alia did not tolerate tragedies. She had never been friends with women prone to love suffering and romantic pathos, and the practice of life convinced her that she was right. Her own marital happiness was multiplied by the extramarital one. In addition to a good, well-behaved family, she had dates on garden benches, runaway hookups in the back room, hasty kisses in the hallway, and burning celebrations of double betrayal to her own husband and a friend, with whose young husband she hurriedly and vividly copulated in some happy random place. Alia was offended, feeling a daughter's dislike. I dreamed that Inga would get herself a permanent young man and become more married. But the smart girl treated her mother condescendingly, explained to her closest friend. You see, these are the vulgar standards of their youth. In this circle, the intellectual, the dissident, the need for freedom was most strongly realized in debauchery. Yes, yes, the ugly girl said. They were all either oppositionists or strollers in their unforgettable 90s, either both or something worse. Inga, clearly pleased with her wit, rolled her eyes slightly at the same time. Guests often gathered in their apartment, mostly my mother's intellectual friends. We sat in the kitchen, drank tea, discussed politics, art, and just gossiped. Yevgeny Ramelyevich spent most of his free time in his office, from where he could hear the faint and irregular tapping of the keyboard of an old computer, as he affectionately called it. Several times a day, Aileen's husband went out to the kitchen, drank weak tea with an indefinite smile, ate a sandwich with cheese and boiled sausage, and, having listened with pleasure to various interesting conversations, retired back to the office. He liked the discord of the warm kitchen and the beautiful, youthful wife, and the whole atmosphere of eternal complacency, but even more he liked to close the door behind him and immerse himself in endless and unnecessary novels that he wrote all his life with heavy and unhealthy stubbornness. And then one autumn, a new character burst into the doctor's kitchen, an exquisite, oriental young man named Yusuf, Danny's new classmate. His family bought an apartment vacated in the same entrance on the 4th floor, which represented exactly half of the doctor's room. The other half was cut off and opened onto the main staircase, while the new tenants had their own exit only through the back. This family immediately and irrevocably attracted the attention of all the residents of the entrance. The people who arrived were circus performers. The head of the family, a famous illusionist, a brutal Oriental man, was a nominal person, because after moving the family to a new apartment, he moved in with his roommate, a girl from the corps de ballet. Yusuf's mother was an assistant to her illusory illusionist husband, and when she took off her golden dress and lipstick, which circled her thin-lipped mouth with a large margin, she turned into a nervous blonde with angry and unhappy eyes. But her son was great. He is also a circus performer, an acrobat. At the age of 18, he has already gained full male height, but has not yet hardened his bones. Swarthy, but not too dark, dark-haired, brown-eyed. He reminded Ale of her own husband in his youth, only much more handsome in both face and article. And besides, he became close friends with her son Danya. 4 long hours, in addition to the intelligent kitchen, they sat in Dan's little room, reading and talking. Yusuf was reading, Danya was talking. Danya was simply obsessed with politics, religion, and history, and found a grateful listener in the newcomer. He talked for a long time, tediously and enthusiastically, to an older comrade about the theories of Fourier, Marx, and St. Augustine, and the guest pretended to listen while he devoured free sandwiches with tea. But one day Yusuf could not stand his long monologues, stood up, did a somersault, and said casually, "You see, I've been working on my body since I was a child. For example, I had a bad stretch. I worked hard, stretched out on Chinese twine. I can do anything with my body." He stroked his chest. "And what about these theories of yours? Shoot the king? To arrange revolutions? No, it's not interesting. I'm being called to 4 rooms right now, on balance, on vaulting, and in 2 groups of aerialists. It's not interesting either. I watched yoga. No, that's not it. My body wants something else. I also watched Chinese affairs. There's something there." And with unexpected instant inspiration. "It seems to me that if you approach it correctly, you can fly. It should be just as simple, well, how to sleep with a woman." And he added wistfully, "I just wish I knew what." Danny took her breath away. Both Fourier and St. Augustine fell sadly silent. It was too unexpected. In addition, the passing mention of women secretly hurt Danila, who had long been burdened with a rich theoretical background in this area in the complete absence of the poorest practical experience. He suddenly felt acutely that his scientific research was suffering from a lack of vitality, in some strange way connected with women, with the simple and strong possession of them. However, their friendship at this place only strengthened. Yusuf had an inexplicable respect for Danya's intellectual power as something valuable, but completely useless, and Danya, in turn, respected the simplicity and ease of his new comrade, and the old house got used to it. Somehow, imperceptibly, it formed its own permanent place in the kitchen, on a wide wooden bench under a high pre-revolutionary window. He liked to sit there quietly and modestly and listen to the entertaining speeches of intelligent people, motionless, like an antique statue. "It's just amazing." Alexandra Ilyinichna was surprised, slightly moving her chiseled eyebrows. "A gymnast? An acrobat? So mobile, it would seem. But when he sits, he looks like a stone statue." And so it was. His immobility was free and complete. One morning, leaving for school, Danya said to his mother, "Yusuf is ill. He is alone now. His mother is on tour. Why don't you come and check on him later? He's still sleeping now, of course." Alya nodded. She had a free day. The schedule was convenient. She made it up for herself. There were 3 days free. After sending Danya, she took a hot bath, smeared her steamed face with a thick, lemon-scented cream, cleaned up the kitchen slightly, called 2 or 3 friends, and brewed fresh tea. She made 2 thick sausage sandwiches, put a cup of sweet tea and a plate of sandwiches on a tray, and, throwing a worn fox fur coat over an old silk robe, went out onto the back stairs in flip-flops on bare feet to take uncomplicated food to a sick neighbor. Wincing at the garbage smells of the neglected staircase of a former decent house, she climbed the knocked-down steps from her once venerable dress circle to the last, 4th floor and, without ringing, pushed the door open. As she had expected, The door was unlocked. "Yusik," she called out from the doorway, looking at the apartment and wondering how the walls had been rearranged. The kitchen was small. During the redevelopment, the bathroom went to the neighbors and had to be fenced off at the end of the kitchen, Alia guessed. She opened the door to the kitchen room, where, according to her, Yusuf was supposed to live. And so it was. A young circus performer was sleeping on a narrow couch, his head slightly tilted back on a flat pillow. Alexandra Ilyanikna, with a tray, in a fur coat sliding off one shoulder, went up to him and saw that he was not asleep. His eyes were half open, and his face glistened wetly. She placed the tray on the edge of the desk and, placing her hand on his forehead, bent over him. "Wow, the temperature is high. You're really sick, Yuzia." He was lying under a thin sheet, covered up to his neck, and looked like a pharaoh's mummy with the whole outline of his body, and this similarity was especially strengthened by his feet, whose socks were not stretched out in a relaxed way, which is usual for a lying person, but firmly raised up. "Yuzia, Yuzia," Alia called to him. With a slow and unintentional movement, she pushed the sheet down, revealing a muscular chest and a narrow stomach, the entire middle of which, covering the navel, was occupied by a swarthy reproductive organ, to which she stretched out an unaccountable hand, and he moved towards her in oncoming traffic. "Take it," he said hoarsely and demanding. Poor Alia felt the whole core of her body, from stomach to bottom, cramped with such an acute cramp that, without remembering herself, she threw off her fur coat, flip-flops, and something else superfluous, and after a moment she soared, throwing her arms into the sky and spreading her powerful hips wide, in such acute pleasure that she, the indefatigable huntress for this mobile game, I have never known it in my whole life. Something squished, squelched, creaked, and groaned in the room. She no longer remembered how she got to her apartment, how she cooked dinner with shaky legs. "I remember only the words of my son. After all, our Yuzia is an original in everything. He says that when I'm sick, I don't eat, I don't drink, I lie for 3 days without turning on the light, and on the 4th I get up healthy. Have you heard that?" Alia shrugged her shoulders. All these hours since she had descended from the ill-fated 4th floor, she had experienced such a fire, such a growing thirst, as if every cell of her body was being fried by a red-hot wind and only a single moisture could be quenched. The household scattered to their rooms. Alia alone sat in the kitchen, almost fainting with impatience, waiting for everyone to settle down. But the house was late. Yevgeny Ramilevich was knocking on the computer. Inga was trying to call her friend and was nervous. Danya was reading in his closet. Tired of impatience, Alexandra Ilyanikna dressed and went in to her husband. "Genya, I completely forgot to visit Natalia today. She's been waiting for me for a long time. Where are you going so late, Alechka? Should I walk you out?" The husband asked uncertainly. But he didn't want to go outside, and he reluctantly let her go. "You're restless, Alka." Natalia Petrovna, the long decrepit nanny of Lyala herself and her children, lived nearby, in a cramped Khrushchev, and Lyala often visited her. But not as often as I reported it to my family. Devoted to her former pupil with all the passion of a born servant, Natalia was a faithful cover for Ali's adventures. Yusuf was still lying in the same position, just as in the morning, covered with a sheet. His eyes were still half open, and everything else was the same as in the morning. He did not say a word, did not even move from his place, only once stretched out his arms to her and touched the dark forms of her large charms, generously hanging over her narrow waist. Alia bit her lips, wheezed softly, and poured copiously over the young man's stomach. And the young man was indefatigable, although he hardly moved, letting his best friend's mother ride on him like a wild Amazon. "She's crazy. She is completely crazy old," Lala kept telling herself all night, tossing and turning next to her husband, then throwing off the blanket, then pulling it up to her neck and stretching out and trying for some reason to keep her toes up, as Yusuf did. At 6 o'clock in the morning, when the household was still asleep, she went up the stinking stairs again, and again it was the same. The same quiet moans through clenched teeth, heat, moisture, heat again and moisture again. 3 days later, Yusuf really recovered. Life got better in some completely insane way. Early in the morning, at the sleepiest hour, She slipped out of bed and went up to him. And in the late evening, when the guests were leaving and the house was quiet, she did it. And if anything prevented her from popping out at that hour, she stayed up all night, waiting for the morning appointment. He was wordless and trouble-free, and it seemed to Ale that no words were needed. Their communication was so exhaustive and burning, always dedicating 2 or 3 close friends to her novels and finding great charm in it. This time Alia did not say a word to anyone. It was scary. She went to work, said something familiar about Flaubert and Maupassant, bought groceries in her favorite small shop, cooked food, smiled at the guests and kept waiting for the moment when she could slip out onto the back stairs, conjuring the slow darkness. For the last time. For the last time. And she walked again, swallowing saliva, stopping at times to calm her breathing, and thought that she was being punished for all the lightness of her carefree loves, for her arrogant condescension to love suffering, precisely to this kind of it, to the feminine and greedy insatiability of feelings. The door was unlocked, as always, and the music was blaring. The strong, rough, and primitive music of this generation. Alia had never heard this music from him before. She was wary, but everything except the music was as usual. The dark kitchen, the sound of dripping water, and a slender strip of light from the room. Alia opened the door and saw something that was not immediately understood. In any case, she still managed to take a few steps before all the necessary nerve impulses worked, ran from the eye to the brain, to the heart, struck with burning pain at the innermost bottom. Right in front of her, the sweaty back of her daughter Inga rose and fell with slow movements, and her wet hair beat slightly against her greasy, freckled shoulder blades with a pathetic ponytail. Between her massive ones, such an alluring, dark, glistening organ of her and only her lover, as she believed, appeared and disappeared. The soft sobs of Inga's thin voice could be heard. Alia did not see Yusuf's face, just as he could not see the one who entered, but she knew perfectly well what an impenetrable, swarthy, and beautiful face was there on the flat pillow. Alia backed up to the door and left the room, the apartment,